Stingrays, we have a video here on how to play defensively as a winger. You're going to love this because we haven't spoken about this one at all before. Okay, so this is going to be huge improvements in our general play defensively. But before we get into that, I've been working on my jokes. I've got an absolute beauty. Absolute beauty. Why does the skeleton always play soccer by themselves? Up the oval, kicking the ball around, no friends to play with. Why is that? Bit sad, bit lonely. It's because the skeleton has no body to play with. No body. Okay, I'll work on it. That was better. That was better. Come on now. All right. Defensively, what should you do as a winger? Well, we know in attack, right? And everyone that's played winger is just doing this absolutely beautifully at the moment. In attack, we want you as wingers to get down the sideline into those attacking spaces to potentially dribble the ball down, cross in, striker, goal. Perfect. You're doing that really, really well. But what happens when the ball comes out and gets won by the opposition? So they now have the ball in the midfield here, and both of our wingers are in front of the ball, so in the attacking zone still. Where should you be running to help the team out in this situation? Well, in the past, what I've seen is the wingers have been coming back a little bit and staying in those attacking pockets. All right, but that's not ideal. It kind of makes sense from an attacking perspective to just stand there and wait for the ball to be won and repassed back out. But especially against the strong teams, it's not going to work, all right? We don't want to give the strong teams midfield dominance. So what we need to do instead is in attack, the wingers, yep, you're a genuine full-on attacking winger. Perfect. But in defence, you become extra midfielders. All right? And what do midfielders do? Midfielders hang around the ball. All right? So in defence, these wingers need to come back and be extra midfielders. Now let's do that with a little bit of structure. What would that look like? It would look a little bit like this. All right? You're coming back and forming the first defensive line with the midfielders, the left and right mids. All right, and you probably think, well, I'm a winger, I stand on the sideline, so when I'm defending, I'm a midfield, yep, but I'll stand on the sideline. No, I think we can do a little bit better and put some more pressure on the opposition than that and squeeze in. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a bit of a team code word so that when the ball gets turned over and we lose possession and the opposition has the ball, we're going to have a team code word, potentially something like shark, where the ball gets lost, we yell, shark! Hopefully we don't play by the beach because that might freak some people out, but maybe we choose another word, but whatever. We yell out something like shark! And what that says to the entire team, including the striker, the wingers and the midfielders, is feeding frenzy. Let's get in around the ball and lock up that midfield, win the ball back as quick as possible. And the way we're going to do that, all right, we have the ball, it gets won by the backs here, sent back out there, shark! All right, we get shark. The wingers and the strikers and the midfield hear that, and the wingers come back and squeeze in, back and squeeze in, keeping a little bit of an eye on where your opposing wider wingers are. So when you squeeze in, you want to squeeze in and also cut off those passing lanes at the same time, but squeeze in around the ball whilst also cutting off that passing lane. The striker is also going to rush back in that scenario and become an extra midfield player. So the striker in defence, in the attacking zone, also becomes like an attacking midfielder. Get round the ball, put the pressure on that midfield, really lock it up so the opposition find it super, super difficult to pass the ball out of that zone. All right, get back there. So we can, to some degree, leave the wingers alone. Now, what happens, of course, if they manage to produce a beautiful long ball out here, that's okay, because you'll see that ball and anticipate that ball shaping up. You'll see the defensive mid there shaping up for a long pass, and you can either attempt to try and block that, or if you don't manage to block it, sprint back and cover here, and also the right back's going to cover there and shut that down. Okay? So that's not the worst thing, to leave that winger. If they want to be out in space there, well, let's make it really, really difficult for them to get the ball. All right, so when we call shark, it means get back, get in, around that ball, become midfielders and scrap for that ball, win it back. Now, a couple of extra things. When we do win that ball back, I want those wingers to quickly then transition back into your attacking zones. Sprint out, looking for that ball, down there, bang, cross, goal. All right? So in transition, quickly spread back out. So in defense, we contract in around the ball, shark frenzy, and in attack, we spread out, like an explosion. Boom, spread back out into those spaces, looking to counter attack. All right, one other scenario I want to talk about. So we get back in like that. Let's say, for example, the winger comes down in here. The defensive mid gets a ball down there. All right, what happens in that scenario? We touched on it a little bit already. And what's going to happen there is this right winger is going to track back. This right back is also going to put pressure on. But what I want to talk about here, and that defensive mid maybe fades back a little bit, the defensive mid also will often be in that feeding frenzy as well. Maybe just off the back of the feeding frenzy like that, okay? But yes, when the ball comes out here, maybe to that wing, the right winger will track back, putting pressure on. The back will also try and put pressure on there, jockey, 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 because we don't want that ball to get passed into this zone. So we're just jockeying, and we're jockeying to hold up time, because what we want now is the rest of these players to backtrack. So if that ball gets past our first line of defence, which is our mids, including our wingers and striker, if it gets past that first line of defence, then we need to jockey, because what we want to do is re-establish our defensive lines back a little bit further. All right, so these come back, back, back. And even the striker might come back, and you might look something like this. All right, and in that scenario, we do similar. We all squeeze over a little bit. All right, we're all squeezing to wherever the ball is when we're defending. We're sort of squeezing into that area, squeezing more players into that area, because, for example, the winger here, if the winger's all the way over here and the left back's all the way over here, they're not really helping defensively. So we want to really squeeze so that we're really sort of surrounding and cutting off all the attacking options wherever the ball may be. All right, and if that winger is all the way down over there, that's okay. We can let the winger down. It's not an overly dangerous position to be in, because we can just switch and chase them down. All right? So it's all about just squeezing in and around that ball and really cutting that off. And we should keep coming back and back and back. So as that attack comes down, if we get all the way back down here, for example, and the opposition has the ball sort of right down here, really attacking our goal, It's maybe something like that. Well, the midfielders the midfielders stay defensive and stay with the ball all the time until we win that ball back. So in that scenario, when they're in our box, attacking our box, we're all back there, just blocking, cutting out the space, just getting on top of the ball, making sure the striker would be back about here. All right, something like that. So we're in there, and if we happen to win or clear the ball, boom, clears out. We all then, or at least the midfielders, just straight push out. We might not win the ball, for example. The ball might come out to the defensive mid here, like that, on the clearance. But we don't stay in the box. We all push out, push, push, and we reset the defensive line out here and repeat that process. Does that make sense? So every time we get beat, so if, for example, we're sort of back up here where we were to begin with, and we're all surrounding that ball, getting in tight, something like this, cutting down their space. Guys will be out here a bit. Defensive mid, probably up in there. Now, if that ball gets over to here, right, and they start charging all the way down here, our right back's going to go across there. Every time that ball breaks our first line of defence, and remember, who makes up the first line of defence? The midfielders, the two wingers and the two right and left midfielders. That is our first line of defence. Every time that first line of defence gets broken, you need to all rush back and reform that line of defence behind the ball. All right, so obviously they'll be rushing down as well, but the point being that every time that first line gets broken, we don't just say, oh well, doesn't matter. The defenders in Ruby and who was there last week? Ruby, Eleanor, Jack, Charlie. They'll save the day. We'll just wait here for the ball to come back. No, every time that first line of defence is broken and the ball gets behind you, you need to sprint back and reform that line of defence deeper in the field or further back in the field. So if the ball was up here, the line of defence would be here, but if it's back here, we're reforming that line of defence with our midfield in there. All right? So keep reforming that line of defence, reform that line of defence, reform that line of defence. Every time they get through and break us down, get back and reform it again, making sure that they've got to get through that defensive line time and time again before they can attack our goal. And as I said, if the ball gets cleared out, then we explode forward into that space. All right? So that's the main thing for the wingers, okay? So in attack, you're going to be in those attacking zones, but as soon as we lose the ball and the opposition has the ball, we're going to call out something like shark or shark attack or something, I don't know. We'll talk about that at training and get a code word. And that means swarm around that ball. The wingers are going to become midfielders, as we said. Maybe the ball is here. And you're going to swarm around that ball. Okay? Not too close. Like, we're not talking about having a giant group hug in the middle there, of course. But, one to two players on the ball, the rest of the players sort of surrounding and cutting off those passing options and marking up those close passing options. All right? Absolutely perfect. That's going to be a huge improvement in our defensive shape. Now that the wingers know in defence, you become extra midfielders and squeeze in and really choke up that midfield space, win the ball back, and then explode back outwards into the space. Absolutely perfect. I'll see you at the game on Saturday. Bye for now.